We're trying to dissect what Brad Treliving had to say today. What stood out for you?
When he talked about vanilla, the word stood out to me, and I think that's just code word for identity. Um, you look at it; it's been a strange start to the season for many teams. Let's just talk about the Leafs. When you look at, if we had this conversation 6 months ago, we could pretty much tell you what the identity of the Toronto Maple Leafs were. Everybody said, yeah, it's core four and, good goaltending. And Berube has this team checking tightly. But, ultimately in the regular season, we won't get to the playoffs, but the regular season, this team could outscore you. They could beat you 5-on-5. They could beat you with their power play. And their D got stingy and their goaltending was really good. So there was that identity of like, okay, how are you going to play tonight? But either way, if it's a 2-2 game, you had game breakers and somebody that could grab it and give you the lead. What's the identity of the group this year? I think that's the biggest challenge. If I did, there was lots of takeaways from what Tree said, but I think that was one of the biggest things is saying like, well, we're a vanilla group. Okay, well, the identity hasn't been established yet because you're not just this, you know, run and gun, highly skilled team. What you try to have is more of a balanced team. Got the same D, which came back, which is a little bit maybe a little older, a little slower, all of that type of stuff. That's a separate conversation. The goaltending hasn't, been the tandem because Woll hasn't been there. Stolarz has been injured and been inconsistent. And then the forwards, they're still learning to play. And I know it's a swear word to bring up Mitch Marner, but they're learning to play without Mitch Marner, who was really good on the penalty kill, really good 5-on-5, and elite on the power play. So, it's a different team. So you can't look at it last year and go, okay, this is the same team coming back. They just minus Mitch Marner. Well, Mitch Marner was a big part of that. So they've got to find an identity. They haven't found it yet, in my opinion.
And what bugs me, Noodles, is these guys have had ample opportunity to have responses to bad performances and to try to show that they're on the right path. And it's just shocking to me. Honestly, it looks like effort and commitment and going out of your comfort zone to doing something different to rectify your problems. It's just time after time again where you think you're going to see a response, you don't. How do you take that? What are you seeing?
The hardest part is I would say, Rosie, like who's the response from? Okay, so I'll give you an example. Nick Waugh, Michelli, some of these guys are new in the organization, so they're just trying to find their footing in a new environment. Easton Cowan, Nick Robertson, are those guys the same thing? Like Robertson's just trying to be an everyday NHLer. Then you go down to like the fourth line. Lorentz isn't a guy who's going to grab it and run with it. He's more just, hey, I'm going to do my job up and down the wing. Uh, Dakota Joshua, same thing. So really, what you're saying is who's going to grab it? Well, it's John Tavares, it's Matthew Nyes, or it's William Nylander. William Nylander doesn't grab anything. What he does is he's really skilled. Um, I was talking about him on our show yesterday. I think people interpreted it that, hey, we're bagging on the top player. He's been their best player. How are you bagging on him? What you were talking about is step out of your comfort zone. Give me a little bit more. Like, I know you can score on a breakaway. I know you can create something out of nothing with your skill, but can you win a tight battle in front of your net and keep that puck out of the net? He's capable of doing it. Maybe that's what you need to see is somebody step out of their comfort zone. And it's not Max Domi fighting a guy 8 feet taller than him. Because I think that's counterproductive because you can almost tie, it's you're thinking it's you're trying too hard. Go out of your comfort zone by blocking a big shot, by taking a big hit to make a play, by giving a big hit, by doing something that we haven't seen consistently with this group. That's where I think they start. And that's the details of the game. Craig Berube's talking about working harder, by working smarter. But again, I see it right through the league. It's not just the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's a lot of teams that are kind of just mishmatching around 500 that you see one good game, one poor game. There's not this consistent response of, hey, we found the formula of how we need to play.
Yeah, I personally, I think it was a fair criticism on Nylander. It's been a weird start. Like he has 26 points in 16 games, but there's been so many different pockets where I haven't noticed the guy. Like he hasn't had that jump or taken over a game the way he has in the
Yeah.
past. And I'm sure you sort of felt that way as well on Nylander. And I think across the group, you need to elevate, regardless of Nylander or anybody else. But the dreaded vote of confidence from Tree given to Craig Berube. Should Berube, in your opinion, be on the hot seat? And is that what it is? A dreaded vote of confidence, you think?
Well, I don't know if it's dreaded, if it's the kiss of death or not, but Tree was right. You don't forget how to coach overnight. Tree gave him a different group. He's trying to get that group to play a certain way. I always say excuses are for losers. I say that to my kids. I say that around my house a lot. But they do have some built-in excuses. Yeah, really. You got your number one centerman, your top pairing defenseman in Tanev, your number one goaltender has been not very good and then been hurt. So they do have, Lawton you would like to play. Like there's some guys who are banged up. Every team is dealing with different type of adversity. So I'm not going to not focus on that. I'm not going to absolve them of everything just because they're banged up. But I would say, like, they need to find. I come back to that identity and able to dig in. The coach is a big part of that, and holding people's feet to the fire. The coach, the players are going to outlast them as far as the length of their contract, all of that type of stuff. The only thing a coach has is ice time, and it's a real tough. It's a balancing act because, for example, if you don't like what I know, it sounds like I'm picking on Willie, but let's just use Willie as an example. You don't like what you see in the first period. You have the option to skip him a shift or two, and get his attention. Now, are you going to lose him in the game, or is he going to dig in and say "F you" and I'm going to take control of this game? These are the types of things we've seen. Berube go after Nylander a few times. Last game, missed assignment in the high slot. Hey, I could read his words. You're just effing standing there. That's what he said. I mean, these are things where you expect guys to dig in. I hope that is balanced through the lineup because I know what type of player I was. I was a backup. I was a guy, I had a long career, but I know I wasn't the best player in the room, put it that way. So if I see the accountability from the top, it's going to trickle down. Because I don't know, Rosie, you've seen this, Nick, you've seen this throughout your career as well. Something happens, it's like, let's change out the fourth liner. Let's change out the seventh defenseman. Those are all the guy that gets the press box. Now, we're changing the lineup tonight. It's the guys who really didn't have the impact as much. But what I would love to see is some accountability for players who are higher in the lineup and not playing that well. You can miss a shift. You can give an assignment to somebody else, and it goes noticed where it's like, okay, Max Domi's not out there. We're putting player X. Bobby McMahon's there, or Nick Robertson's going to get a roll through. These are the types of things. I think when it comes to coaching, Berube can press on those buttons a little bit more, but I'm not laying it at the coach's feet. He doesn't go out and block shots. He doesn't go out and take a hit to make the play and have the details of the game. That's where the players have to be a lot dialed in. I would say they got to own this 80%, and 20% is on the coach.
Mm-hmm. Moving on to the crease, it's nice to see Joseph Woll get back in. Obviously, I think he gave them a chance to win. Stoli just simply hasn't been himself and what he proved he's capable of last year. If he gets healthy, do you think it's just as simple as getting those two back into the routine that they were in last year, where they share that crease? Do you think that's as simple as it could be to get both of them to be doing what they were doing last year?
I do, because I've said this and I live this. I could play 20 games, 25 games in a season, and if it was spaced out, I could give you some pretty good minutes. But the minute you started getting into the 30s and 35 and stuff, your game erodes. Starters have a different mentality. So when I look at it, Anthony Stolarz played 34 games in the regular season last year. That's a lot. He was on pace this year to be playing like 55, 60 just because of what Joseph Woll was going through. So there wasn't, hey, one game and then 4 days off and you can reset, let your body reset, and you're right back at it. It's like, no matter how you played on a Tuesday, you're playing again on Thursday and again on Saturday and again on Monday. That's the biggest challenge. So what you just said, Rosie, you get both of them back, now you've got, if they're healthy, and now they've got that competition. It's like, okay, it's my net Thursday, it's your net Saturday. Or if I play well Saturday and get a shutout, maybe he'll come back with me. But that's where they had that magic last year, because they were pushing each other, going, hey, I'm happy for you when you're in the net, but I'd like to play there too. So it's kind of that healthy competition. They're missing that. If they can get back to that, that's where it starts. Now you start getting the saves that you need and a couple that you shouldn't. All of a sudden, the confidence of the group is like, we can trust what's going on back there in the net. You can make a mistake, or you've got the confidence to make a play that maybe you shouldn't. And we've seen too many times this year a glaring turnover, and they eat it because it's in the back of the net, instead of maybe last year that's a save and you go, yeah, that turnover could have been scary, but the goalie bailed them out. They haven't been able to do that this year.
It has been such a fascinating season to start on so many regards. Like, goaltending was just so damn good for this team last year, and it's been a different story. And of course, it starts with the Joseph Woll conversation. But I mean, in this world, we like to look back to the commentary of Stolarz earlier on this year in October. You're the former goalie. I know you've talked about this a lot in the public eye, but like, I mean, do you think Stolarz regrets what he had to say? Do you think it's just coincidence the numbers are what they are? And looking back, how do you think everything was handled there?
Well, I don't think he regrets it, because he's a fiery guy and I don't mind the emotion. But I'm a guy who subscribes to, you keep it in house, because as a goaltender, you live in a glass house. The minute you start throwing stones, like, you better back it up. And all of a sudden his play had dipped a little bit, or there was a market correction on him, and the focus is on him. When you speak up, all you do is shine a light on everybody else, but you shine a light on yourself. And then you start to pay attention to his game. It's like, maybe he wasn't at the top of his game as well. And, he's calling out. I don't know. Again, we all felt he was calling out Nylander on that play. And Nylander's going, well, I got 18 points at the time, whatever he had, right? Nylander's like, just so you remember, last game I scored in overtime, or last game I made a great play to Matthews on a 2-on-1. So I didn't like it for that thing, just because, listen, in the media and as fans, we have the right to talk about it daily, every second. And we live it, but they live it in a different way. They've got a family in that room, and brothers can argue, no problem. But I've always liked to keep things behind closed doors. I hated it when it got into the media and it became a public thing, because all it did is shine a light on what was going on. So I didn't love it at the time. I don't love it now. I believe Stolarz will come back and he'll be fine. He'll settle back into his routine and being a good goaltender. But in hindsight, he probably, if he was able to, take 10 minutes before an interview, he probably would have gone a different route, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like there's enough spotlight in that position in Toronto.
Exactly.
But we're approaching the 20 game mark here. American Thanksgiving's coming down the barrel. You've had a chance to look at this team. Obviously not where they want to be, but what's your prediction? Do they pull themselves out of this, or is this a disaster season?
The only how I would say it would be disaster if they just continued to have injuries. And then you fall into the Boston trap, where you're just like, you can't dig out, and they start shutting players down instead of like getting them healthy and going back at it. Boston hit a different level last year. They lost Lindholm, which was a massive blow to them. McAvoy coming out of the Four Nations, they shut him down. They trade Marchand. They start doing a lot of that other stuff. Excuse me. But I don't look at it that way. I think they can dig out. But like Tree said this morning, he'd like to see the players that he has play to their capability. That's one thing they can control. They can play better. And it's not about scoring more, or, it's about playing as a team better. So can the goalies make saves? Can the forwards, so that the D advance the puck to the forwards? Can the forwards either score or manage the puck so they're not putting pressure on the D and coming back and helping them out? To me, I still think there's lots of runway there. And keep in mind, I've always said this and been consistent with this, so I'm not going to change my thought process. I always felt this team was a work in progress. I felt like Tree was going to try and add to this group at some point, a top 6 forward. If a top 6 forward gets pushed into there and everybody's healthy, maybe that resets and pushes guys down to where they probably should be, and they're not trying to punch above their weight. They've got decisions to make with Cowan. Cowan can be up and down all year, and that's not a bad thing. He's a good young player. Robertson, what are you going to do with him? You're looking at Järnkrok. You've got some players farther down in the lineup that you got to figure out, are they going to be here, or are you going to try and move past them and bring in some other players? Defensive core, I've been consistent with my comments too. I think they need a puck mover. Stetcher's a good skater. He can move the puck, but I think he's a stopgap. I've always felt they needed a top 4 right shot defenseman that can move the puck. I know Rasmus Andersson is a Christmas list guy. I look at Colton Parayko. We might see it tonight. The guy that might be, by all accounts, Doug Armstrong has said that he's open for business. You have to think that Brad Treliving's been calling around to see what he can do to add to his group. I know he doesn't have a lot of currency, but I look at players that can help your group. I've always believed it's still a work in progress. So it's a long answer to your question, Rosie. I still believe they can come out of it, but if you get injuries and inconsistencies, and all of a sudden we're past the Thanksgiving and into Christmas, and you're tied with Buffalo at the bottom of the conference, then you got to look in a different direction.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.